The storm has passed, the fierce winds have finally subsided. Yet, across the Philippines, battered towns are not resting. Instead, they are bracing for a new, deeply haunting threat, surfacing rapidly online. It is a viral tsunami warning, a rumor powerful enough to make everyone, from seasoned experts to terrified citizens, turn their gaze back to the dark, churning ocean. You must grasp the full weight of this reality. Typhoon Uwan is not over. The danger is far from gone. Super Typhoon Uwan had already carved out its place in history, shattering records with sustained 215 kilometers per hour winds and devastating 9-meter storm surges. The catastrophic aftermath left an unimaginable toll, displacing well over 1 million people. But now, the focus has shifted. Experts are urgently analyzing a pattern of subtle seismic tremors and decidedly unusual wave patterns rolling in from the deep water. The question that hangs heavy in the air, plaguing every recovery effort, is this: could the terror return, perhaps even more ferociously, before the first foundations of reconstruction can be laid? The truth is far more complicated and infinitely more urgent than it first appears. Let us revisit the exact moment of impact. At 9:10 inches the evening on the 9th of November 2025, Super Typhoon Uwan made its devastating landfall over Dinoan, Aurora, with its sustained winds peaking at that shocking 215 kilometers per hour. But what made this storm so singularly catastrophic was its colossal reach. Its sheer diameter spanned nearly a staggering 1,800 kilometers, establishing it as one of the largest storms ever recorded in the region. This was not a localized event. It was a force of nature that enveloped an entire country. Reports from PHIVOLCS and the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council confirmed the initial, heroic effort. Over 1.3 million people were successfully evacuated in advance of the storm's arrival. This effort undoubtedly saved countless lives. Yet, the brutal reality is that over 482,000 people were still left utterly displaced once the storm finally passed. The sheer numbers alone tell a tale of profound loss and lingering vulnerability. In its wake, the storm claimed at least 27 lives and left 36 more injured across the ravaged area. The moment the storm hit was marked by a colossal scale of destruction. Reports from PHIVOLCS and the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council confirm that even with the massive effort to evacuate over 1.3 million people in advance, more than 482,000 citizens were left displaced, their lives completely upended after the tempest passed. The final tally of human cost is heartbreaking. At least 27 people lost their lives, and 36 more were severely injured in Dinawan Dipakula alone. In the eye of the storm, the devastation was total. It is unimaginable to grasp that nearly every single home in the landfall zone was either severely damaged or completely destroyed. The brute force of the storm surge was the most shocking element of this disaster. Waves surged as high as a terrifying 9 meters along exposed coastlines. Utterly overwhelming seawalls that were supposed to be immovable and driving a relentless wall of water deep inland. The subsequent flooding was reported across a staggering 149 municipalities, with the provinces of Aurora, Belel, and northern Luzon bearing the absolute brunt of the catastrophe. This wasn't just rain, it was a systemic collapse. Power grids and communications networks failed in multiple provinces, plunging entire communities into isolated darkness for up to 48 critical hours. Imagine being completely cut off, not knowing if help is coming or if your loved ones are safe. The very infrastructure holding these communities together vanished. Roads and bridges dissolved under the pressure of colossal mudslides and collapsed embankments. Critical facilities, the lifelines of any disaster response, including hospitals, evacuation centers, and water systems, suffered such severe, unforgivable damage that they actively complicated the efforts of rescue and relief teams. Official situation reports logged an overwhelming total of more than 100,000 homes destroyed or severely damaged. Emergency shelters, meant to be safe havens, were filled beyond capacity as terrified families sought protection from the terrifying combination of floodwaters and winds laced with deadly debris. The sheer scale of Uwan's impact stands out as an unbeatable disaster, even in a country heartbreakingly accustomed to ferocious tropical storms. The raw numbers and the indelible scars left behind are nothing short of staggering and shocking. Amidst the shocking statistics and widespread physical destruction, there is a story of profound, quiet courage. A story that will haunt the community long after the waters recede. Liza Ramos, the barangay captain of Uwan, had less than an hour to make a truly life-altering decision. Facing an approaching wall of water in a village already severely battered by relentless wind and rain, she acted. At 4 inches the afternoon on November 9th, her voice crackled with urgency over handheld radios, amplified by urgent text alerts. Everyone near the coast and riverbanks must evacuate. Now. Families staggered uphill, carrying their children, clinging to a few essential bags, and whatever meager food they could grab. This desperate, chaotic scramble was their only hope. The last outbound convoy of vehicles departed just before dark, their headlights desperately weaving through streets, already heavily flooded before the roads themselves vanished entirely under lethal mud and broken, uprooted trees. By nightfall, Uwan was completely cut off from the outside world. The coastal road had collapsed in 2 places, and every bridge had buckled under the strain. For the next 48 harrowing hours, Liza's sole connection to the municipal command center was a battery-powered radio, relaying scratchy, unreliable messages via dedicated volunteers. She logged every single distress call by the weak beam of a flashlight, meticulously rationing the scarce food supplies and checking on the elderly, some of whom were too frail to even move. When dawn arrived, the makeshift shelters were filled beyond capacity. Rain hammered mercilessly on the tin roofs while the wind violently rattled the walls, already weakened by Typhoon Uwan just days earlier. The emotional toll was unimaginable. Some desperate residents pleaded to return home, driven by the frantic need to retrieve vital medicine or simply to get news. Others, angry and completely exhausted by the relentless fear, flat out refused to leave their posts. Liza stood stoically in the doorway of the evacuation center, her own house already destroyed, her uniform soaked through, repeating the same unwavering promise. "We will get through this. Help is coming." Tragically, 2 lives were lost in Uwan that night, when a house finally gave way, and 3 more people were injured during the frantic scramble to reach higher ground. For over 30 agonizing hours, not a single ambulance or vehicle could get in. When the first rescue trucks finally breached the collapsed roads on November 11th, Liza was still there, hoarse, sleepless, but miraculously alive. Her decisive, early call had undoubtedly saved dozens, but the painful cost of waiting for outside assistance would haunt her long after the floodwaters finally receded. A biting salt spray now hangs heavy in the air as the battered coastlines confront a wholly new kind of peril, one that lingers long after the storm's furious eye has passed. The ocean itself remains profoundly unsettled. Even now, hours and days after Uwan's landfall, powerful, heavy swells are relentlessly rolling in from the deep water. These are not typical waves. They arrive in slow, relentless groups, sometimes with a staggering interval of more than 20 seconds between each crest. These are the lethal long-period waves. For fishermen like Junella Cruz, who lost his boat entirely to the initial surge, the deep-seated temptation to return to sea is overwhelmingly strong, but the danger is profoundly real. These long-period waves possess enough destructive force to lift massive logs, heavy concrete chunks, and twisted metal debris from the shattered remnants of houses, driving them violently far inland or dragging them suddenly back out to sea. June knows with grim certainty that a single unseen piece of timber lurking beneath the surface could instantly shatter a hull or violently capsize a rescue boat without the slightest warning. At the mouths of the swollen, muddy rivers, a deeply sinister new hazard has emerged: backflow. This occurs when the surging seawater violently pushes upstream against the river's natural current, creating unpredictable, swirling, and lethal channels. Rain and mud, washed down from the devastated highlands, pour into the surf, mixing dangerously with the heavy debris from collapsed bridges and broken homes. Rescue teams operating in these areas are reporting sudden, powerful, and unbeatable currents at the river mouths. Currents strong enough to effortlessly sweep away even large, motorized rescue vessels. The surf zone itself has been transformed into an absolute minefield. Piles of wreckages churn violently in the breakers, while extensive sections of seawalls and piers, already severely undercut by Uwan's initial 9-meter surges, remain at imminent risk of sudden, total collapse. Coastal erosion is now aggressively eating away at ground once considered stable and secure. Foundations are cracking, and desperate, makeshift shelters stand precariously on shifting, unstable sand. For both families and the exhausted first responders, the message is unambiguously clear. The storm's most visible violence may have ceased, but the ocean's raw, immense energy is still actively at work, reshaping the coast with every terrifying wave. Extreme caution is not just wise, it is an essential, life-saving necessity. A single, shocking video clip, just 15 seconds long, was all it took to trigger a wave of instant, pervasive panic across Luzon's already battered coast. The surge of sheer fear was instantaneous and incredibly widespread. In the short clip, a tremendous wall of water is seen crashing violently over the San Pedro seawall, sending foam and heavy debris surging into the dark, flooded streets. The sheer force of the water makes the wall of fluid appear absolutely unstoppable. Within mere hours, millions had watched and shared the clip, frantically tagging family and friends with a single, terrifying warning: tsunami. The comments section quickly filled with raw fear, desperate calls to immediately evacuate, anxious questions about missing relatives, and urgent, desperate pleas for updates. In Pangasan and Lon, the fear was so overwhelming that some families abandoned their homes in the middle of the night, utterly convinced that a secondary, far greater disaster was about to strike. The psychological and human toll extracted by this sheer fear is very real, but the factual truth behind the footage told a starkly different story. Agency analysts swiftly compared the video's timestamp with readings from tide gauges and detailed seismic records. The truth simply did not match the terrifying viral claim. There was no earthquake. There was no sudden massive shift beneath the seafloor. The powerful surge captured on video was ultimately determined to be the last gasp of Uwan's wind-driven flood, a formidable event in itself, but emphatically not the start of a true tsunami. Scientists are now working urgently to emphasize the critical distinction between a storm-driven surge and a seismic tsunami. Experts explain that while storm surges can look incredibly violent, even seemingly unstoppable, they critically do not come with the telltale withdrawal of the ocean or the rhythmic, sustained pulsing waves that are the signature of a true seismic tsunami event. The water observed in Santa Cruz rose rapidly and crucially, stayed high, lacking the specific, long-period oscillation that would instantly set off alarms in the monitoring rooms of PHIVOLCS, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or the PTWC, Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. The confusion and panic spread so unbelievably quickly because, in the age of instant information, fear always travels faster than fact. In the chaos and immediate aftermath of Uwan, social media became a complex force, simultaneously a vital lifeline and a dangerous, potent hazard. Viral posts, stripped of all critical context, blurred the crucial line between immediate, real-time danger and completely unfounded rumor. The lesson here is unambiguously clear. Not every dramatic wave is a tsunami, and crucially, not every viral warning matches what the scientific instruments actually see. Understanding this difference can literally mean the difference between exercising safe caution and descending into needless, life-threatening panic. To ensure survival and minimize needless panic, understanding the official alert system is paramount. Within mere minutes of any strong earthquake, PHIVOLCS, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, instantly registers the event's magnitude and precise location. If the quake is offshore and exceeds a critical magnitude of 6.5, the entire national alert system triggers immediately. Analysts in Manila, alongside their counterparts in Hawaii at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, PTWC, immediately review data streaming in from an array of tide gauges and sophisticated deep ocean dart buoys. These instruments are incredibly precise, capable of detecting even the most subtle changes in sea level, thereby confirming or definitively ruling out a tsunami threat in real time. Tide gauge readings arrive rapidly, typically within 5 to 20 minutes, while the dart buoys send essential pressure data from the deep sea every few seconds. During the recent magnitude 6.8 aftershock near the Luzon Trench, PHIVOLCS issued a precautionary bulletin in an astonishing 6 minutes, and the PTWC confirmed no unusual sea level activity just 12 minutes later. This sophisticated network of sensors and rapid analytical capacity means that if a real tsunami were indeed forming, official warnings would be disseminated to at-risk communities before the first, devastating wave ever arrives. 3 possible scenarios now shape the anxious days ahead. The most likely path, the green flag scenario, is that the ocean's immense power will eventually ease, waves will shrink, and exhausted rescue teams can finally reach the hardest hit, isolated areas as conditions finally calm down. However, experts are acutely warning of a second, plausible yellow flag scenario. Unstable underwater slopes near river mouths could still suddenly collapse, sending dangerous, localized waves surging toward the shore. While extremely rare, A third red flag scenario cannot be dismissed. If a major offshore earthquake, magnitude 7 or higher, strikes the trench while the coast remains severely weakened, a true tsunami could terrifyingly follow. Safety, therefore, depends entirely on recognizing the critical signs. Sudden, unexplained water withdrawal from the shore, strong earthquake alerts, or official tsunami advisories mean immediate, extreme risk. These are your red flags. Steady sea levels, no recorded seismic activity, and clear, reassuring agency updates signal your green flags. Staying acutely alert to these subtle cues transforms uncertainty into decisive action. Today, the Philippine coastline stands at an incredibly fragile crossroads. With every passing aftershock and every rising tide, heightened vigilance becomes a profound necessity, not merely a choice. Science can and must warn us, but true resilience is ultimately built in every single decision we make to prepare. The ocean's memory is long. Our readiness must be longer.